A rivalry week rolling on, presented by Verbo. Got a special guest, Tyrann Mathieu, in the house this morning. College football fans know him very well. NFL fans with the Saints now know him very well. But we want to welcome him. It's just a friend of the program here. Tyrann Mathieu, how are you doing this morning, man?
How you doing, man?
Look, I'm going to say a sentence to you, and I just want you to tell me how it strikes you. The LSU Tigers are going to play for the SEC championship this season.
I mean, obviously, I'm excited. Definitely surprising, but definitely excited as well.
You know this culture very well. You're a Louisiana guy. You played at LSU. You also were around about the time this game that we're getting ready for this weekend came about, which is when Texas A&M sort of joined the SEC. Explain to people who may live in North Dakota or New York and they don't understand the culture how important this game is before we even start talking about Atlanta.
Well, I think it's extremely important. And obviously, this is a big game. This is a big week for the Tigers in specific. But, you know, I think every SEC game, you know, each and every week, it has a lot of volume to it. So, you know, I'm definitely rooting for my Tigers to push through.
There was a video that circulated not long after Brian Kelly took the job at LSU, and he brought you in and you spoke to the team. I thought it was some of the most awesome video that we saw leading up to this season. And you basically just poured your heart out, man. You talked to the LSU 2022 team about 2011, Tyrann Mathieu, and who I was then, what I wish I knew then, and the lessons I've learned since then. Could you sort of take me back to that day and then take me back through the years that led up to the message that you give to younger guys now?
Yeah, I think, you know, first and foremost, I think it was a great opportunity, you know, having a chance to, you know, meet with Coach Kelly, you know, for about an hour, you know, before I even gave the speech, just me and him kind of just talking, you know, him getting a feel for me and who I was as a person, as a man today, you know, me getting a feel for him and what kind of culture, you know, he's trying to create. And, you know, for me, even going back, you know, obviously, you know, we all go through rough patches and, you know, have to, you know, go through adversity. And that was really my message to the team, you know, is to always be resilient, you know, to look adversity in the eye, you know, own up to those challenges, you know, those new opportunities, and try your best to make the most of it. So, you know, I'm hoping that my message got through. I think the Tigers are on a roll right now. So I'm assuming that, you know, my words are kind of sticking with those guys this year.
I got no problem giving you credit for this season if you got no problem with it. So let's talk about this season, man. We saw the early game and we saw them lose to Florida State. And I'm sure it doesn't shock you that a lot of people just freaked out after that. But that team internally, they kind of stayed the course. They got the ship righted. And even though they lost again later down the road to Tennessee, it's been like watching a coach that's been there several years. Because it feels like Brian Kelly already has complete command of that locker room and the program. Everybody's sort of reading from the same playbook, so to speak. Have you been surprised at how sort of snap of the fingers quickly this thing's happened?
Not really. Like I said, you know, having a chance to really sit down with Coach Kelly, you know, obviously, you know, I was in Kansas City with Coach House, the defensive coordinator, so I know what he's all about. And, you know, so I knew that these guys were like in the right hands. They just have to believe in the coaches. They have to believe in the system. And, you know, like I said, we all kind of have adversity. We all have these rough patches. But the most important thing is to try to find a way to stay together, stay the course, and always believe in what your coaches are preaching. And I think the Tigers as a team, I think they've believed in that, you know, all the way up until this point.
What did you think when he got hired at LSU and some of the people's criticism was he's not from Louisiana, so he just won't get it? What were your takeaways on that?
Well, I think they underestimated him, you know, really, and everything that he's been able to do, you know, at all the programs, you know, he's been at. You know, I think my expectation for him in year one was how can we find a way to win 10 games? And so I think he's on his way there. And so, you know, obviously it's so much expectations. It's such a high standard, you know, wearing the purple and gold and, you know, being in charge of that team, that program. And but I think Coach Kelly has definitely, you know, answered the call. And I think he has a long way to go. And I think he'll definitely continue to answer it.
I remember sitting on a couch at a buddy's house when the NFL draft was happening and you end up going. And I remember looking at all the experts and I'm flipping through channels and this table over here and that table over there. And folks are saying two things. Tyrann Mathieu, that he's ultra talented. Look at the game tape. The film doesn't lie. And then you know what came next. What came next was, but I've got this concern and this concern and that concern. How sweet is it to be sitting here all these years later to be able to look back on some of the detractors and how seamlessly you were able to silence them?
Well, I think personally, it was a lot of hard work. I think it was a lot of, looking myself in the mirror, being honest with myself, being vulnerable with myself. But also, I think, it's a testament to, the people that, were around me. I think having a chance to get drafted, and go to Arizona with Patrick Peterson and Larry Fitzgerald, really two of the best professionals, that I've ever been around, while also being two of the greatest players I've ever been around. And just having those guys with me every day, for the first 5 years of my career, I think it really taught me a lot. It showed me a lot. And it allowed me to understand, the path that I was on was the right one. So I think being a young kid, your mind can go, all over the place. It's kind of hard to figure out who you really want to be. But I think being around the right people and, obviously, getting to play football, one of the things that I love to do, it was really important for me to continue to stay on that path and continue to, just answer the call.
You mentioned Patrick Peterson there, and you mentioned Larry Fitzgerald. Knowing the impact those guys had on you when you first came in the league, does that put a little extra emphasis on you when you see rookies come in the door now to sort of be that role and play that figure for them?
Absolutely. I think ultimately, it's my responsibility. I think if you are able to receive a blessing, I think you should try your best to give one back, in return. So, hats off to those guys for always embracing me and like I said, really showing me the way. But I do feel like it's part of my duty, to help these young guys, to assist these young guys, not to just be great players and stay motivated on the field, but, to stay motivated in their family lives and their personal lives as well.
All right, so a couple more here. For those who have never been in an NFL locker room, which is like 99.9% of the audience, what is the most overlooked or maybe underrated aspect of life in the NFL? What is the thing that no one really gets that is a key part of your life?
Well, I think most people, they assume that, we're all millionaires and that we all kind of just, come to work and go home. But I think people really underestimate the brotherhood. You hear more about it in college and in high school, but in the NFL, I think it's just as important. So how close are you as a team? Especially outside of the building. Are you guys hanging out? Are you guys going to dinner together? I probably say that's one of the elements that most people just kind of take for granted, assuming that we all have our personal lives that we can't wait to get to. But the reality is, a lot of us can't wait to get to work and can't wait to get around each other in the locker room.
That's awesome stuff. All right, let's circle it back around to Baton Rouge to close us out here. You got A&M this weekend. You got Georgia in Atlanta. What are you looking for? What are your expectations the rest of the way?
Well, I'm hoping that we can finish strong. I think right now, a lot of people are, patting us on the back, and they're telling us how great we are and, what a shocker it is that we even made it this far. And so if these guys could just continue to put their head down, like I mentioned earlier, continue to believe, what the coaches are telling them, and then just find a way to finish strong. And then I think when you get in these kind of games, late November, December, January football games, your best players have to show up. So I'm looking forward to seeing our best players, really show up and show out and hopefully, put us over the top.
Tyrann Mathieu, this was awesome stuff, man. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.